of understanding that just because time is available doesn't mean it's free. There's people that go Division 1 and crack. They can't handle the pressure. Everybody else is just as good as them. There's people on the team better than them. It's always like somebody's peering down their shoulder.
You know it when you see it, but how does it get there? Why do some people have it and others don't, right? Is this a trainable quality? Like, these are all questions that we're going to be answering over the course of the next 3 episodes.
Hey, good people. Welcome back to another episode of Training Well Done, your podcast on the what, the why, and the how of quality training. I'm your co-host, Coach Donald.
Coach Tim?
We were over here fussing about Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, it was my gear grind of the week. I was telling Coach I put up a bunch of posts, and man, you get some really qualified respondents and some really unqualified inquiries as well.
Yeah, reading is not everybody's specialty, unfortunately. And it's like, there's directions in here. And I was pretty clear about what this is and what this is not.
I think that's what frustrates me the most about it is, like, I spent a lot of time on the front end trying to eliminate all of the work on the back end. And that time, I feel like I just wasted that time because there's still all this communication to be done on the back end. But
that drives me crazy. Do you want an air fryer? I've had an air fryer on the marketplace for 6 months. No one's bought it. It's like, I put like $40.
No takers.
No takers. I don't know why. It's in great shape. I mean, it looks crazy on the top because one day I was air frying something and I left the oven mitt like on top of the air fryer, so kind of like part of it burned onto the air fryer from like the heat vent.
Yeah,
but like I don't like it didn't affect
That's
anything.
fine.
It just looks a little color crazy on top.
That's
But
fine.
I'm like, aren't air fryers? I should know how much an air fryer costs, but aren't they over $100? Maybe.
I feel like $40 is reasonable for an air fryer.
I was also trying to get rid of a blender, because we just have duplicate utilities.
Right. I don't know though. What as soon as someone buys that blender, like, you need a blender, right? You can't go without a blender.
Yeah, but we have one. She has like her blender is so good, like I don't even use it.
So
it seems too complicated.
There's like no risk of it breaking down, because I'm saying, like, as soon as you get rid of something, sometimes then the one thing that you have breaks.
Oh, right? I don't even
like,
use the blender because like I don't want to be responsible. She uses it too much, so I feel like I'm in the way. And like she will wash out to use. I use and wash out.
Yeah.
So I don't want
got it.
I don't want to wash a dish to use it though.
Right.
So like I'm not the person that, especially I have a dishwasher. Like I'm not going in the sink to wash a dish, to use it to put it back in the sink. I refuse.
Yeah.
So that's also part of why I don't use the blender.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyways, mental skills training. And this week we're recording is the first week of Summer Trackside.
First week?
Today's Wednesday. And so today was day 3. It's been going so smooth.
Yeah.
Wish we were there on Monday. You were there Tuesday.
I wish I was there on Monday too,
butter.
honestly. Yeah.
It was so awesome.
I remember last summer I was able to make it to day 1, and I just remember like the energy and enthusiasm that you brought to day 1. I'm like, I remember thinking, man, these kids are excited about Summer Trackside. Coach Donald is like that excited times 3.
Yeah. It's like a holiday. Oh, actually, so was it Marcel that told me this story? So, Caroline, she's so funny. So I'm at the gym, and I think it was yesterday. I think she was there yesterday, and I was like, just seeing how like she felt from the day before, and she was like, so we were out on the. I don't know if they said it during the warm up, and I just didn't hear it. Or they said it when they were on the run with Jack, and I was like, trackside, it's like a holiday. And so apparently she had asked Marcel, like, wait, is it Juneteenth? And I was just like, wow, that's just, I just was laughing because I really didn't know how else to respond to that. Wow. For those of you listening, Juneteenth is on Friday, but, she tried.
She tried. So, yeah, no, I wish I was there on Monday. I had a great time on Tuesday, though, with the distance kids. And I just wanted I wanted to call them out specifically, especially given like the subject material that we're going to talk about over this episode and next. Um, these guys and I was, you know, just with the distance kid, so I can only speak to that. But these guys were just like receptive and willing to listen, and like I had full attention, and they like understood what we were trying to do and executed it really well. It was like they were just like dialed in.
Mm-hmm.
And I really commend that, because in a situation like the first week of Summer Trackside, like you're excited to be there, you're like with your friends or you're making new friends, and there's a lot going on and
Mm-hmm.
everybody's bubbly and excited and enthused, and so it's like an environment where it could easily be distracting,
Yeah.
right? But these guys were really focused, and that was fun for me.
I got through that whole workout. That's awesome. It's good to like be in environments where it's focused. Like today, we had just the middle school group. They were focused enough to do things, but like, oh my gosh, it's so much like, hey, hey, refocus,
Uh-huh.
refocus, refocus.
Yeah.
Because they can be scattered.
Yeah. I was looking at the roster for class tomorrow morning because I needed to get um I wanted to get the board done for tomorrow morning before I left for today, because Thursdays are crazy. I'm just like always coming in hot from trackside, like
Mm.
dropping the bag, jumping right into the, so any prep work I can do. And I was like, oh, that 9 o'clock is gonna be rambunctious.
Oh yeah, you got the young guys.
Great kids though. They work hard. They're good kids.
I wrote a note. They have to do extra stuff because they move so fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna talk about some sports psychology. You know, just kind of thinking about focus and everything. Like the psychology aspect is just so important, and you know, it's sometimes I don't know slippery. It feels like
Mm.
sometimes to like really quantify. Like you can quantify how fast somebody is, how much stamina they have. You know, different strength qualities, but it's really I don't want to say it's really hard, but it is somewhat subjective to be able
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
quantify like somebody's mental state and how they like handle performance. But you know it when you see it of like a kid who's really struggles to like have good conversation with himself and be able to focus
Mm-hmm.
and like envision things well, even though they may or may not have all the talent in the world. Versus kids who like they're just not that great, but up here they're that great, and so they like almost overperform.
Yeah. It's like you know it when you see it, but how does it get there? Why do
Mm.
some people have it and others don't, right? Is this a trainable quality? Like these are all questions that we're going to be answering over the course of the next um, 3 episodes. So this is some subject material that I've really I've really wanted to explore, and honestly really fascinates me as well. The goal over these next few episodes is to provide a thorough understanding of where those mindsets come from and how they can be developed, right?
Mm.
So you can use them to complement, supplement, and enhance your athletic performance.
Okay.
So, the best way to start is to just um, define some of our terms, right? So everything that we talk about is going to be under the broad banner of sports psychology. This is relatively nascent and gaining in popularity. Like I don't know about you, coach, but like when I was, training and competing and in school, like nobody talked about this stuff. It's only recently that and I mean within the past, decade or two, but it's really start to become a little bit more mainstream. Especially with your top tier athletes. So I'm just going to read off the definition verbatim, so that way everybody listening has a good idea of what sports psychology is. So it's the study and application of psychological principles to improve athletic performance, motivation, and well-being in sport and physical activity. Okay. This has its basis in cognitive behavioral therapy.
Hmm.
So, just as a caveat, as we move through these things, a lot of the examples that we're going to use apply specifically to sports and performance, but they can also be applied just generally speaking in like ADLs,
Okay.
daily life. Okay. Um, to break that down a little further, sports psychology examines how thoughts, emotions, and behaviors can influence not just athletic performance, but also your training habits, like i.e., staying consistent, with your training, um, motivation and confidence, like you just mentioned, and the response to pressure and competition. Like how do you handle a high stakes scenario?
Hmm.
Okay. So we're effectively, to put that whole bit a little bit more succinctly, we're effectively looking at the cognitive skills that will help athletes perform better, and then subsequently unpacking what those skills are and how to train those skills. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So looking at actually pulling apart more objectively, like what the different parts of the sports psychology kind of realm is, and then like how do you actually improve those things?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, there are tested and proven methods to enhance all of these things that uh, enhance or elevate all of these things that we're going to be talking about. So it's um, we think of this first piece that we're going to talk about today is mental skills training.
Mm-hmm.
So mental skills training, MST, is going to be a subset of sports psychology, but in essence, we spend a lot of time and we have a lot of proven methods to improve metrics like your like we've talked about on the podcast, right? Like your aerobic fitness, things like lactate threshold, VO2 max, like all of these really objective things. But now we're at a point with the development of sports psychology that we also have methods to improve things like your attention, your focus, your decision making skills, on the field. And also for a later episode, like your internal cueing, like what's that conversation that you're having
Mm-hmm.
with yourself,
Yeah.
and how can you have a better conversation to have a better performance?
Okay. Makes sense. That's something that like I still think about. I was having a conversation even just the other day. It was on Saturday. I went to go play frisbee, and just about even like consistency with training. And that's something that's kind of like I don't know bugged me really throughout my 20s, all of my 20s, and even a chunk of kind of college sometimes, to where I've come to like respect that there's a different level of bandwidth to being able to consistently train towards something that's like different. It's like more than just showing up to work out every day. Um, Over the last few years, I've been able to, especially like since I've started getting into endurance training more, like increasingly be able to put together like long stretches of training over like several months in a way that throughout my 20s it was very difficult, even though like I work in a way just as much or more than I did, 8 years, excuse me, 8 7 8 years ago. But on the flip, um, it feels less existentially heavy than it did before. And like now I just feel like I have room to train
Mm-hmm.
and like train for things. Whereas like when I was playing Ultimate Frisbee and I was trying to like try out for these different clubs, like I just really struggled trying to like train long term, like and keep up with like a high level of progressive training. Like not like working out, like being able to work out 3 4 5 days a week wasn't a problem, but like following a regiment, I found very difficult. Some of it because of what I just said. Some of it's like sometimes I outsmart myself and I'm like, oh no, I'll tweak this, but
Hmm.
Like, I don't know, like work often creeps into like workout time. Even in college, it was
Yep.
sometimes difficult because we would have all of our practices. Now I'll make practice, but like I was always like coming from a meeting and going to a meeting. So like I didn't like kind of ease into practice, and I never like went to the trainer to go like ice up or do anything like that. Like we got done with our last rep, bag outs.
Yeah.
Um, and I was like so fast that I would catch the rest of my teammates for dinner in a dining hall coming from a meeting because they took their time to like get done with practice, cool down, stretch, go see the trainer, do anything like that. Kind of just lollygag with each other and
Mm-hmm.
waltz on over. It might be an hour and a half before they got to the dining hall to go eat.
And
And I was like
you've already had
whole
had
meeting
a
and whatever
meeting
I had. And like our lifts, it was sometimes difficult to even make those all the time. Is I know that sounds kind of crazy, right, from the context of who I am in this podcast, but sometimes we had lunchtime common hour lifts, or like we would lift at like I want to say like 5:30 or 6, but I would always have some sort of like other obligation that I ended up picking over that. And sometimes I would make up the lift on my own, but like it was just like I don't know, it felt like it was just hard fitting all the hours of like not necessarily just the issue of time availability, but also a level of maturation of of understanding that just because time is available doesn't mean it's free. I
Yes.
used to be
We
that.
t-
We talked
we
about this the
talked
other
about
day.
this on the
I
podcast.
used to
Yeah.
be that really annoying
Yeah.
person that was like, "Oh, if the time is on the calendar, it's available."
Yeah.
And like I'm just now like in my middle 30s, like, "Oh, well, just because it's on the calendar doesn't mean I need to fill it with stuff."
Yeah. Like it's like if you have room in your God, this is like such a me example. If you have room in your pack, you're gonna fill it. So just like get a smaller pack and don't bring so much stuff.
Mm-hmm.
um, it actually reminds me of something that I used to do when I was training at the Y. Was um, people would book hour-long sessions, right, as they do, but they were dialed in with their specific warm-ups, and they knew like, hey, I'm going to do the warm-up 1, 2, or 3 based on what coach tells me when I get there, and they're pretty much good with that. So basically what I wound up doing was only coaching 45-minute sessions. So they saved they would accumulate that extra time, so they got a free session at the end of the package or whatever it turned out to be. But then I could use that 15 minutes for like the follow-up, the bookkeeping, the whole 9 yards. Because what I realized was, if I'm blocking off 3 to 4 in the afternoon, but I've been coaching since 6, 7, 8 a.m., that hour is just going to get shoot up right away,
Yeah.
right? And then I'm not getting my lift in. So just like, to your point, carving out those 15 minutes, but not necessarily like trying to book somebody else or have somebody else come in a little earlier or do things like that.
It's so hard to say no sometimes. It's hard for me to say no to them. It's probably sometimes hard for you to say no to me. It's hard for me to say no to y'all when y'all want to move stuff. Or like,
Yep.
if it's a new person and I'm looking at my calendar, like, I'm supposed to be earmarking this time to like be at home or do something else. And I'm like, I could do 4 o'clock. And then I'm like, why did I say that?
I know. Because because you could. It's open. Yeah. I got myself in trouble doing some onboarding sessions from the 6 to 7 a.m. hour because like I'm there at 6, right? It's a 45-minute or like a success strategy meeting, right? Like it's a 45-minute meeting. I'm already there at 6. It ends at 6:45. I've got 15 minutes to write the board. No, I need I need that whole 6 o'clock hour, especially on a Monday morning, to like just not fill.
Yeah.
But anyway, so some real life examples of staying consistent.
Yeah.
But before we go into our deep dive, we're gonna chat through some common myths, just like we do for anything else, right? So a few myths that we want to dispel here as it relates to mental skills training. So now we are specifically going into the MST component
Okay.
of sports psychology, mental skills training. Uh, First one is that mental skills training is just positive thinking, right? Like just having that bubbly, cheery, chippy personality. Nothing ever gets you down, and that's all mental skills training is. Not true. A general outcome of a dedicated mental skills training practice is generally a tendency towards more positive thinking,
Mm.
but it's just not that simple. It's not that black and white. So in terms of the research, the most heavily researched areas in MST are in goal setting, which is pretty familiar. That's where it all starts. Attention control, imagery, and self talk. And we'll break that down,
Hmm.
obviously, in more detail. But those are four highly researched areas. And the difference between that and positive thinking is that those are like tangible, trainable qualities
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just someone's uh, demeanor or disposition,
Okay.
right? Second myth is that mental skills are only used in competition. Okay, they are used in competition. That's the point. They're not only used in competition because you have to train them. Again, they're trainable qualities. So saying that mental skills are only used during competition would be akin to saying I'm going to go run this race and not train for it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like showing up to the start line of a marathon without having ever run a mile. Um, Third, and this is one that I think requires some more specific language. The third myth that revolves around MST is that elite athletes are just naturally better
Mm.
at it. So this is kind of a chicken and an egg situation. Elite athletes are not just generally better at mental skills training. So
Mm-hmm.
like we'll just put that out there to start. What makes them elite is that they practice all of these things that we're going to talk about. Now, at a certain point in their career, they might have gotten to a point just on raw talent that now they have the time and bandwidth and energy to say, oh, okay, how can I level up,
Mm-hmm.
right? And get into this MST stuff. Maybe it started a little bit earlier, or maybe they just, to your point earlier with the kids, maybe they just happened to be that type of person that was like super sharp and super focused and was
Mm-hmm.
able to have those good internal dialogues with themselves. And that just kind of happened naturally and sort of fast tracked
Yeah.
their path. So I think what I'm saying here is that elite athletes are much more likely to be better at mental skills training, but they are not naturally
Yeah.
better at it.
I wonder how much of that is if, for athletes who have a lot of talent or have a lot of practice early on, that they're in more highly competitive environments at younger ages to where let's say you're going to nationals
Yeah.
at 10 years old for gymnastics or for track or for soccer, and so you're having to try out for teams. Maybe you're trying to try out for a US team or like a travel team, and you have to be able to perform with people who are way better than the people that you like, play around with in your neighborhood. And so, in order to actually survive in that environment, you either figure this out on your own, or I think the second component to this, I think outside of just being in very competitive environments at a young age, is parenting. And like these sound like, when I'm hearing you say this, these sound like things that parents can teach, and like how you parent and communicate to, if you're with your 9 year old at, a baseball game, um, how do you coach your 9 year old to be able to stay calm? How do you coach your 9 year old to like be able to envision what they do well? Like I see parents do this well, and I see parents not do this well. And I wonder how like that little voice in their head from their parents actually influences their ability to handle these highly competitive environments when they're 12, when they're 15, and that allows them to thrive. If they go to, let's say they go Division 1, there's people that go Division 1 and crack.
Mm.
They can't handle the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else is just as good as them. There's people on the team better than them, and they're trying to catch them. The people that they are better than, the margin is so small that it's always like somebody's peering down their shoulder, and they're not used to that, and they've not been in enough competitive environments to handle that, and they don't know how to embrace that. And there's other athletes who are the people that are like in the back that got into maybe a big time program by the skin of their teeth, and they're able to rise to the top over time because they're able to mentally be able to stay focused, stay long term, and compete at their best during times where some of those better quote unquote
Yeah.
athletes can't compete up.
Yeah. No, that's a great call out. I had not thought about that, but then hearing you say all of that out loud just reinforces the idea like that all of this is grounded in that cognitive behavior therapy, which is basically what you are getting as a young child when you're being parented.
Oh my
right?
gosh. We're
So
only a few weeks in and I'm thinking about parenting affecting athletes more.
yeah, right. Choose your words wisely. The fourth common myth associated with mental skills training is just that visualization is just like daydreaming, right? I'm thinking about this perfect race that I'm going to run. And we'll explore this more when we get to that section of the deep dive. But true visualization as a mental skills practice is much more nuanced than that. So a lot of times, like we said, people think mental training is just like positive thinking. Visualization is just daydreaming. There's so much more to explore with each of those things. It's not as simplified as that. So, to talk through these things in a little bit more detail, we're going to cover 4 different topics on this episode as it relates to mental skills training. The first one is going to be goal setting. So we said like that's obviously where this all starts, and it's the most heavily researched. I remember I did this whole workshop on what was it titled? I think it was creating lasting habits. So it was in the context of this was like a corporate wellness bit that I would bring to places, and so it was in the context of not running, know I should run, start to run, keep running. Okay, that was the path that we would take for some of these employees at these big organizations, and we obviously would educate them on the the volumes of research that have been done in terms of setting goals and sticking to goals. So I figured that was a good place to start this whole conversation is the goal setting piece. There's some links that or some studies that I can link to in the show notes if anyone wants to like really explore this stuff in a little more detail. But our big key points for today is to understand that when you're setting a goal, you're making a choice to direct attention and bandwidth towards that goal. And then the result of that is that the behavior will follow. And that's where we get into all like the SMART goals, right? Okay. The specific, measurable, actionable. What's the R?
Specific, measurable, achievable,
realistic, and time bound. It was realistic. So identifying those key factors is super important. And it's also good to determine if you're like if you have performance and process oriented goals as opposed to outcome goals,
Mm.
because outcome goal you see a big drop off in success rates when you start talking about outcome goals. Okay,
Really?
so yeah, so just to use an example, saying, and this might be an example, now that I'm saying this out loud, this might be an example that we keep coming back to with all of this. So maybe we can keep that theme consistent throughout the discussion. But saying my goal is to qualify for the Boston Marathon is a lot different than saying my goal is to qualify for the 2028 Boston Marathon. And between now and then, these are the things I will do
Mm.
to improve my chance of success, right? So like you can start at the top and work down, but the working down is very important. Or
Okay.
you can start at the bottom and work up. But like you can't skip all those steps, right? I'm gonna sit here and say like my goal is to qualify for the 2028 Boston Marathon and leave it at that.
Mm.
You're doomed for failure at that point.
So like, what? So for me, I have the petite track meets on Friday, and there's a couple of meets I'm gonna see if I can go to in Erie in the next few weeks, and kind of depending on how not today, this Friday goes, will influence what I want to do if I'm about going to the U.S. For like the national masters meet, and I had wrote up throughout like the end of the fall. I was like, all right, I want to run a personal best in one of my sprint races. And so what I did in my planner was I wrote up, all right, this would be an adult personal best to run X, Y, Z times.
Uh huh.
These times would be kind of what's a reliable time that I would run in high school
Okay.
or college. Like this is like an expected time of like, okay, I'm in that type of shape if I run this time. And then if I run below that time, I'm now performing at a high level. And if I can beat these particular times, then I'll have like actually run at my fastest ever. So I have it kind of tiered so that hopefully I can check a box somewhere, and versus trying to put all my eggs in the basket of like in 6 months can I be at the best that it took me years to get to when I was like a teenager.
Yeah.
Can I beat that? Because it's my own experiment of like if I do the type of training that I have people do, can I eclipse that 30 pounds heavier 15 years older, can I eclipse that in 6 months? Or how
Yeah.
close to that can I do? And so like I have it like, all right, the petite meet was really the meet I was training for, but like, and I thought about like people talking about masters. I was like, okay, I guess I could go to masters and like stretch this time frame out a little bit. So it became, all right, I want to eclipse one of these three times, if not all three times. But I know that there's a level of specialization that would need to happen, but I don't think the times are fast enough to require that specialization yet. I don't. I
Okay.
just like we're not like we're talking about like trying to run 48 and 400. I just it doesn't. I'm not trying to run 10:3. I'm not that fast. So the times I need, I'm like I think basically keeping up with things will be good. So then it became all right. I need to sprint twice a week. How many weeks can I stack of sprinting fast twice a week? And like I know that if I can do that as many weeks as possible, then I'll be in good shape because everything else will kind of fall into place.
Yeah. And that's the kind of, I mean, that's the kind of preparation that we're talking about here too, right? And that's where I think that this stuff can be so advantageous, especially to our adult athlete population is, to your point, 30 pounds heavier and 15 years older. Like we're not getting any younger, but we have the wisdom and the experience and the
Mm.
maturity to say like, okay, not only do I need to like outline what it is that I'm going to do and then stick to that, but also put my brain to work for me to make sure that that happens.
Yeah.
Where like in high school, there's not that intention,
Hmm.
right? You're just showing up to practice.
Yeah. And like I'm so curious to see how that plays out because the times that let's say I ran last summer, or God forbid, the summer before that, were like times I ran in like middle school. Like I had never run. I don't have any recorded times that are the slowest some times that I have run last
Uh-huh.
summer. And I'm like, all right, if I can turn that around, and technically in one calendar year, even though I was still doing that half Ironman, so I really didn't start training until like really like after my December cruise. Like if I can actually turn that around, like wow, what was I doing all of those years when I was
Yeah.
younger? When I
Yeah.
could have been so much better. If it took me 6 months in my adult self to get back to the same level of shape that I stacked years
You're
trying to
right.
do.
Right. No, you think about that now, right? It's like, oh man, if only I knew now what I knew in my late 20s, maybe into early 30s, like, oh, what could I have done?
Yeah. But
Okay.
anyways, you made me think about that as far as goal setting. Like, all right, it's specific, it's very measurable. So also, I
Uh-huh.
love track. It's so
Yep.
measurable. I think it's quite achievable. It's realistic, and it's also time bound because like these races are on set
They're,
dates, and I
they're
have
on
to like,
it's on the calendar.
yeah.
Um, Remind me to share a funny anecdote. I don't want to take up too much airtime here, but remind me to share a funny anecdote about trackside on Tuesday with the distance kids and just like the mindset. Caroline, just like, what are we doing? Like when, how far, how fast? Like what are we doing? What are we doing? I'm like, well, right now we're just warming up.
Oh, Kate was asking
we're
me the same
we're on a
questions.
warm up jog, right? like, and we're just so like the mentality is just so funny for me to
Yeah.
watch. All right, so shifting gears now to the second part of the deep dive for mental skills training, attention control. This is something that absolutely fascinates me and I think is especially important when you're speaking in terms of endurance athletics. I was going to say it was is especially poignant, and then I realized I don't know how to pronounce that word. This is
Poignant. I think it's poignant.
poignant. It's
But
kind of
I
like
really don't know. I
kind of
think
like
it
a
is.
carburetor situation all over again. I go to say the word, I can spell the word, can't pronounce the word.
Poignant.
Um,
Poignant. I
Poignant,
don't want to say it too many times because then I'm gonna
poignant,
mess it up.
poignant.
I think you
Anyway,
got it. You should just roll with it because you keep saying it, then you're gonna be like, you're gonna realize that words are just
right,
scramblings
just
of
scrambles of
letters and
letters.
sounds, and then you're gonna be like, does my name even make sense?
So we've talked about this before. The fact that your brain uses a ton of calories just to stay on. um, when we're talking about attention control, we have to understand that you're you have limited bandwidth in terms of attention,
Mm.
right? And your brain can't process everything equally. So it's going to default to something
Mm.
to pay more attention to while filtering out other things that it deems as unnecessary or unimportant. And this is happening all the time,
Like
right?
right now.
Right. This is a natural bodily process. If your brain was trying to interpret everything all at once, it would just explode. I don't know if it actually would explode, but you get the idea. So, as an athlete, when we practice attention control, what we're doing is making a specific choice on where to spend that limited bandwidth,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, this I'm sure you can relate and probably have a million examples, but like take take our drills and our form work at trackside, and we're saying, hey, athlete, when we do this, I want you to focus specifically on this, right? That is coaching or cueing attention control in the athlete. So the idea is then they are better at doing it on their own when we're not around,
Yeah.
right? But attention control is a super important and super effective mental skill to have.
So when you're talking about attention control, is this just related to like staying at the task on hand while you're doing a workout, or is this kind of related to kind of the macro of like dealing with like all of life's open loops and things like that? Like, is this about being able to maintain focus on like your training despite life's open loops when you're not in a workout environment, or is it more about when you're training, if you're, if you're doing a workout and you have like, let's say you got like a 6 mile workout and you got like tempo miles in there, it's about being able to stay focused on staying on pace. And maybe it's like a form focus. Maybe you're doing a workout. Maybe you're doing easy run and your focus is on like a certain postural thing, and being able to stay focused on that without distractions. Like, is it all of those things? Is it related to like specific components, or is it none of those components?
In this context, that's a good distinction, Coach. In this context, it's more related to that micro stuff that you were talking about. Like, okay, what does my arm swing look like on this rep? Or what, like, let me maintain my cadence so that I ensure that I hit my splits on this workout. So it's more of like the in the moment type stuff where you're saying, okay, I need to, there's a job that needs to get done. I know how to get that. I know what I need to do to get that job done. Let me direct focus and attention on the things that I know will make that, like, will allow me to do that job and make things happen. So, like I just mentioned, the little things like arm swing, cadence, things like that. I think this might better answer your question. It's just like a little anecdote. So a few years back, well, a lot of years back, I ran the Chicago Marathon. It was a whole story. I'll share the story off air if anyone wants to hear it. It's a good one. It's a great racing misadventure story. Anyway, dropped out of the Chicago Marathon at mile 10, really dehydrated, like in bad shape. And so I needed to get back to Chicago. And so, what was it, 24 maybe it was? 23 or 24. I went back. I ran Chicago. Didn't have a great training cycle that time. I think I was going in with like maybe a 16 and an 18 mile long run, not the volume that I really would have liked. I had no plans to complete. I just needed to cross the finish line and like cross it off my list because I didn't do it the first time around. So I was a little bit unprepared. I knew that going into it, so adjusted expectations, things like that. Ended up actually running a pretty decent race. I want to say it was like a 3:08 and change. So for being undertrained, like that, I'll take that. But anyway, the point of this whole thing is that there's this stretch where you're at late stages of the race where you're headed out. There are people headed back. And this is like miles 22 to 24.
Okay.
And you can't see where the turnaround point is.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, and so at that point I was like, okay, my training is not going to get me through these last few miles, right? It's going to be, things like focusing on my mechanics and making sure that I'm still picking my knees up and, I'm still doing all of these things. So like, I need to not pay attention to those people coming back. I need to not give a crap about where that turnaround is, right? Because that's consuming resources. I need to take those resources and focus on making sure I'm still putting one foot in front of the other, right?
Yeah.
Because if I get distracted, things are going to come unglued. Anyway, the exclamation point on this story was that so I wound up wound up finishing, did the whole, thing, you know, and I was talking to my wife and my sister-in-law after the fact who were there, and they were like, "Yeah, it was so great when you saw us like right before the right before the finish line, and like we're so glad we caught you like right at that point." And
Mm-hmm.
this whole thing, and I'm like, I said, "I didn't see you." Like, what do you mean you didn't see us? We were right in front of you. I was like, I didn't see you. And apparently, I did see them.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't recognize that I saw them.
Mm-hmm.
Like they said, they were like, no, you looked directly at us. I didn't acknowledge like there's nothing. I was just like survival mode. And they were like, no, you looked directly at us
Mm-hmm.
and like didn't do anything. But I was like, and I have no recollection of this because my brain was filtering out
Yeah.
all of those distractions. Very single minded focus. Um, so, um,
I think that's like very important to be able to stay focused when it becomes very difficult. I remember when I did the Virginia Marathon last year and I got to mile 20 and it got to be like, it was this very hilly race. So for those listening, it was like this 3,000 foot elevation, throughout the course of the race. It was just big rolling hills the whole time. It was that race that I did last
yep,
year. I was doing all
I
the hill
remember.
training. And the race went pretty well, but the issue was that my challenge was that I went out too fast. Like I felt so good for the first like 15 miles. I was flying. I didn't realize that like you might pay for this later by the time I got until it was like mile 17 when it was like this 14 to 17 was a big climb. So then it was like a 3 mile drop.
Okay.
And going into mile 20, like I didn't feel bad on the 17 to 20 drop. I just was like, I'm not running as fast as I thought I would because I was working too hard going up the hill.
I remember you sharing this. Yeah.
And at any rate, mile 20 to mile, you get back to the bottom, it was around like mile, I might get the miles wrong. It doesn't matter. There was another spur before you go back to the finish. And it was a situation where you had to figure out where the turnaround
Yep.
was. And we're going up this road, and it was up and drops, and so you got to go up and drop back. And it was like, so the turnaround was somewhere around like mile 22 or something like that, mile 22, mile 23. And I remember going out there like, all right, this is getting difficult. And on the way back, this is difficult. And like what I always do is I go and I count my breaths.
Yep.
So I will count. Like I literally know that if I'm running at about like an 8:30 pace, a mile is about 350 breaths. If I'm running around a 9-minute pace, a mile is around 400 breaths. I know that if I'm hurting and I'm running slower, a mile is more than 400 breaths, closer to 500. Like I can kind of tell where I'm at because like I don't want to look at my watch anymore.
Right.
Like seeing how much distance
It's
I've
another
covered, what pace,
distraction.
the
Yep.
distraction. It is never good news. Like if I feel the need to look at my watch, if I feel like I need to look at my watch, I'm not in a good place.
That should be Garmin's slogan. Garmin, never good news.
And if I'm looking at my watch willy nilly, I'm running so fast it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how it is. Like if I can look at my watch and it doesn't matter. I know I'm running fast, so I don't look at it. But like I go through like, all right, and I tell the kids, I want you to focus on your breathing, and then we're gonna get into a meditative state about your form. So your arm posture. How's your arm swing? Check your feet. How's your bounce on the ground? Like I want you to just pay attention to where your feet are impacting the ground. All right. Is it the way you want it to be based on the pace that you're going, based on the effort? Like I'm not going to tell you what your feet should be doing, but is it doing what it's supposed to do? And I mean, what it should be still be doing is you should be
Of
bouncing,
course,
right?
yeah.
Are you flopping
Yeah.
on the ground? Can you correct that if you're paying attention to it? Are you picking your feet up the right amount for the actual cycle, right? How's your posture? How's your lean? Is your chin tucked? Are you looking up there? Like, are you swaying? Like, go through this checklist through your body, because you're going to be out there running for, depending on, it doesn't really matter how long it is because it could be a 5K to where a 5K is so difficult from like a pain perspective that you need to be locked in on that because it hurts to run that fast. And the faster you get, I think in a way, the faster it gets, the more it hurts, but the more you're able to handle the hurt. But like when you're out of shape and you're trying to run fast, it's like
Mm.
it's one of the worst experiences you could voluntarily do. Versus like in a half or like a full marathon, like the fatigue is accumulating, but you can like mentally and emotionally like work through that to stay focused on what you need to do, because otherwise like you're going to feel like worse. You're going to run worse and you're going to feel
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah, that's actually something we'll talk about next episode, is that like pain management
Mm.
from a psychological standpoint. Um, but I think when you were talking, I think like it's important to reiterate at this point though, like in those racing contexts, right, that we just shared, this isn't, attention control is not like a switch that you can just flip on and off. Like you're only able to execute that desired control over your attention because you've practiced it,
Yeah, like
right?
those are techniques I use when I'm working out.
Correct.
If I'm running repeat 200s, repeat 400s,
Yep.
like it's almost like I can't even do this stuff until I'm tired. Actually, not to like ever associate Kobe Bryant with me, but like it is one of those situations where there's certain skills you can only work on when you're tired. Like I from a physiology perspective, it really is moot. To an extent, but like from a emotional control and mental skills training doesn't even kick in until it gets hard. Like you have to get through all the easy part of your workout, like the stuff that you do while you're fresh, the skills that you don't have to think through. And then like when it's hard, if you're like in a hard competitive situation at practice, or you're at like a low level meet and it's like, I didn't expect this person to be there. But you don't want to, like, your ego doesn't want to lose. So then you have to like check into this. You're in a workout and it's finally like, it's difficult. Just the last few reps. Then you have to turn this on. Like, you have to practice this
Yeah,
during those moments.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right, number 3 for mental skills training: imagery and visualization. I have another funny anecdote.
I've been doing this the whole time.
Yeah.
I every now and again you're talking and I'm thinking about the meet on Friday. My hands will get sweaty and I'm like literally thinking about the blocks. Like, all right, I need to come out of the blocks. So, like, sometimes you're talking and my like the back of my head, my brain just kind of drifts and I'm thinking like, all right, because we're talking about this. I'm like, all right, I would come around the curve like here for the 200. All right, like I would even
Where am
just
I
kind of
at?
thinking about the feeling of
What
like,
it's
all
gonna
right,
feel like.
there's
Yep.
going to be these other guys next to me and I'm going to be lined up with people around as fast as me. How can I get out in front of them and stay out in front of them and stay relaxed? And like the stuff, like I was at the track on Sunday sprinting with Olivia and like we were going over some form work and I'm like, oh, these are things that I like need to like do a little better. Like can I do this? And like I don't know, my mind was just thinking about it. And like every now and again when I think about like running the race, or even thinking about like when Jen runs, because I'm trying to like make her understand, like she went to Slippery Rock for like their open meet, but for some reason there wasn't anybody there. Like the one that me, Alan, Norma, and Leslie went to was popping. There was a lot of people. Hers was like crickets,
Huh.
and she didn't run fast, even though she said she felt good. But stimulation matters,
Yeah, of
and
course.
especially in sprinting. And I was like, this will be like highly stimulating. Like I'm nervous thinking about her running. Like, oh my gosh, she's gonna run so fast. So, like, and like I don't know. Like I'm just literally sitting here on the back of my head, like kind of visualizing how I want this race to go.
Well, I mean that's exactly what you're doing. Like you're practicing mental skills training, and the when we talk about visualization, the research behind, they do a lot of like brain imaging and stuff, right? So like, hey, imagine this scenario, and we're gonna do a fMRI of your brain and see what's happening. Like, what parts are lighting up? Are they the same parts that are gonna, be firing during actual performance? And there's this fascinating book I read years and years ago about this, and I'll try and remember what it was called. But anyway, there's some pretty robust research here, and what they found is that the imagined movement, like you were just talking about, activates many of the same motor planning regions in the brain that are involved in the actual movement. So it's called a functional equivalence. And by just imagining these scenarios, your brain is being triggered the same way that it would be as it will be in the actual scenario. So it's just reps, right?
Yeah.
It's like reps of the race. There's a few caveats here. One is that to really get the benefit from using imagery and visualization is they've found that it has to be very, very specific.
Mm.
Okay, so again, like to go back to the goal setting piece, right? You can't just be arbitrary. It's not like you're not imagining crossing the finish line. You're imagining every single second of that event and just rehearsing it in your head. What is it like? What is the environment like? Right? Um, what's the weather like? What's the crowd support like? How are you going to feel at mile 10 versus mile 22? And you're just like imagining this all in as much detail as you can conjure up. And the more detailed it is,
Mm-hmm.
the more effective um, that it's going to be. And so, like, just to make sure everyone's understanding this correctly, um, the you're not just visualizing success as in, I'm going to get across the finish line. Yay,
Mm-hmm.
me, go. You're making a dedicated, concerted effort to rehearse the execution
Mm.
of getting to that point. So you at the end of that whole dress rehearsal, yeah, across the finish line, woo, fist in the air, but like you have to imagine first how crappy you're going to feel when you hit the wall.
So even like with this 100 meter, so on Friday I'm running 100, and when I think about even visualizing that, kind of like to that extent, like it's not just finishing, it's that execution. So like I could even see like, all right, boom, I'm in the blocks, and like what I think about doing exactly is my 7 step start. So right leg's in front in the blocks, set, gun goes off. Now I need to get 7 right foot cycles. So left foot comes out first, and then it's 1, 2, 3,
Uh,
4, 5. Like, and then when I get to 7, now upright. All right, now I need to say shoulders forward, roll over the sprint stride, stay bouncy off the ground. Do not reach for a step, just roll over the steps. All right, and then I'm like envisioning like shooting out and catching the people next to me, and like being able to roll and stay out in front. And if there is somebody there, like my brain is like, you're walking them down, but you're staying relaxed and you're just moving fast, and like even just rehearsing those first. When I say 7 step start, I'm counting one leg. It's like this whole technique thing we use for start, but it's basically that simple. Having a really fast first 14 steps, but being horizontal and pushing for 14 steps before getting upright in the top speed.
mm-hmm.
And like, how can I get those 14 steps out fast? Like, I know how to be powerful through there. I've gotten better at that. That's something I'm decent at. Now, can I get those steps down fast? Right? When you watch like high level runners go, when they shoot out, it's not just that they're taking big powerful steps, they're also getting on the ground fast. And like that, the rehearsal is like doing that thing. Or like in the 200, all right, there's somebody out there. If I'm in lane 5, there's somebody out there in lane 6. So boom, we're hitting the start. I'm getting out. I'm going to close that gap, and I'm going to feel fast coming around the top of that curve, not exerting all of the energy, but a fast amount of energy. Like, do not get got coming around the curve and get on the straightaway, whip on the straightaway. Now it's move your turnover as fast as you can. Get on and off the ground, fast turnover, and walk somebody down. I mean, if hopefully you can just be in front,
Yeah.
and there's nobody to walk down. But and can you finish fast and like actually negative split the 200? Because like ideally you should negative split the 200. So like can I finish my second 100 faster? Because that means that the top speed is there, but also the speed endurance is there.
Yeah. And it's that level of detail that makes it effective,
Mm-hmm.
right? You really have to get that nuanced. I apologize. It can be effective with less detail, but like we said, having all of that, like you have rehearsed every single step of your entire event, right? And that's just going to reinforce everything from a neurological standpoint. And you kept using the word in there like rehearsal, 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 and that's like all this. That's all this
Mm-hmm.
is just rehearsing the event before you have to go perform. I used to do this thing before races. maybe the night before, or sometimes the day before, or the the day before, the night before, because sometimes I like to just do some disassociation before a big race, and free up that mental bandwidth. But I'd like just turn off all the lights, lay down in the middle of the floor, and just do my dress rehearsal, for the 26 miles of a marathon or whatever the race would be. So like you do it in practice, you get ready, for opening night, and then I would always do like a dress rehearsal or like a soft opening.
Nice. That's awesome. And you can do that laying down, like it doesn't feel like the gravity's off, because like I don't know, I feel like even like I can't like slouch and do that. Like I almost got to be upright a little bit.
No, I felt like, I don't know. I just felt a little bit more grounded and a little bit. I was able to bring the focus a little bit more internal if I wasn't worried about like where what my posture
that makes
was
sense.
like. I think that's why I did it lying down.
Gotcha.
So number 4, this is something that we referenced early on in the show here, is self-talk. So this is that, internal dialogue that everyone's having with themselves. So every athlete is going to engage in this dialogue. So we're not arguing it does or does it not exist, right? The question that we're trying to answer here is like, how can we make this conversation a meaningful and useful conversation, right? The conversation is going on anyway. So the research on endurance performance has demonstrated that structured self-talk interventions can improve performance during demanding exercise tasks. So that I read like training, and that athletes trained to use specific keywords were able to sustain efforts longer and perform better. Okay. So certain things, think of that as like, okay, what's your mantra when you're running, right? I would always be like, okay, I'm here. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm making if you're listening, I'm making the okay sign with my hands. And so like on every arm swing, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. Like I'm not going to die. And this is lots of like coaching cues that we'll use to kind of, especially in competition, to bring the athlete back.
Yeah.
To like having their attention, we talked about attention control, having their attention shift back to certain things like, run tall, get your feet on the ground, like you just said. So these coaching cues that we use are an important part of that internal dialogue, right? Because if you're thinking about getting your feet on the ground faster, that's where your attention's going. You're not thinking about something else, or you're not having this conversation with yourself like, oh, I'm not in the place where I thought I was going to be. And then, you have this negative spiral to that. So manipulating or choosing and practicing ahead of time the type of mental chatter that needs to be going on inside your own head is very important.
I do this when I'm swimming a lot. I mean, I do this when I'm running, but like when I'm
I can't wait to see where this is
so
going.
much stronger. So I'll tell 3 short stories. So there are 3 different races. The very first triathlon I've ever finished from swimming, it was a couple years ago. I did a super sprint, and I remember I went out and I'm swimming, and I'm like, all right, you just stay calm. It's like the first 100 meters, and I started way in the back. So what happened was I was starting to catch up to people, and I was terrified to touch people. So my self-talk really was, don't touch anybody and don't let anybody touch you. So I was touching people. So I like ended up picking my head out of the water and trying to look at my neighbor, and it was very fatiguing.
Yeah.
And I wasn't used to the transition of going from kind of standing rest. Like when you do that, like there's not really a big warm up. So like my ventilation picks up. But when I'm running, I don't notice the ventilation pick up. When I'm swimming, it feels like fatigue. And so like when you start having to breathe to exercise.
Yeah.
And so I remember I rolled over on my back, and I was like, all right, You're on your back. You're okay. Because I'm like, oh my God, is there a kayak near me? I was like, no, Donald, you're okay. This is your second time. Joella looked you in the face, gave you a handshake, and did not bust your balls about not DNFing the last race. Do not have to look this woman in the face, DNF again. I was like, you're going to be fine. So I just kind of floated and did my little wade. Ended up, I rolled over and I was just right next to the buoy. It's like, oh, all you have to do is go around this buoy and it's a straight shot back. And I was like, all right, you're good. Like just roll, swim. And then like, just pull,
Boom,
roll,
boom.
pull, roll. So,
Yep.
and I finished and I
Yep.
was like, oh my God, yes.
Yep.
And then shortly after that, like a month later, I did a different super sprint race. It was at Brady's Run Park. Beautiful, beautiful lake to swim in. And I swam, and I remember I had to roll on my back real quick. I had switched to my other side, and my left side, it was just a little bit more tiring to breathe on that side. So I had to just roll on my back, and I was like, Donald, you are completely okay. You're safe. You're fine. Like, I think the water is actually really shallow here. Like, you're going to be good. I was like, and then I asked myself, actually, to introduce that conversation, I asked myself, am I doing a good job? And I answered myself, yes, you are. And I literally talked to myself like I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
While I was floating
Yeah.
and then rolled over to swim, and it was a good swim. Fast forward a couple years later, I did the that half Ironman in Wisconsin. And I was so nervous going in because my practice swim got messed up because the corner buoys weren't there. And the sun, like the diagonal to go from the straightaway to go to that straightaway, instead of it being a corner turn, the buoy wasn't there. So you had to make like a diagonal cut.
Okay.
Like you cut the corner of a piece of paper off.
Yep.
The sun was right there. So like you couldn't see this buoy. And I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to be stuck in a situation where I can't see the buoy? Because like I had to use my tow buoy to like float and like locate myself. You can't use a tow buoy in Ironman now. So that like the rest of the swim was good once the sun wasn't in my face, but I was so nervous going into the race. I was like, Donald, you're gonna be fine. And I got to the start and I was like, there's an orange buoy right there. You're going to be good. It's so close. All you have to do is go straight. We swim out. I get to the buoy. I turn. When I turn, the sun is to my like 10 o'clock. So by 12 o'clock, completely clear. I could see almost all the buoys. It was like a half a mile. I could see all the buoys for the half a mile. I was like, you're good. You can see the buoys. Just have fun. Like it's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
The water is sparkly. Look at the buildings over there. Like what a beautiful day to be swimming right now, Donald. I get to the next buoy. I realize I'm probably about 150 in. You're 150 in. Your ventilation's picking up. But remember, this is exercise. You're transitioning from rest to exercise. You're waiting in line for 35 minutes, 40 minutes to get into the water.
Mm-hmm.
So you're at rest. Your ventilation's going to pick up. And I knew it was going to pick up around the turn of that first buoy, about 200 in. So you're fine right now. I guess I was a little further than I thought. It was like maybe closer to 150, 200 for the turn. Anyways, once I started passing people, I said, look, those people are taking breaks right now, Donald. They all swim way more than you. I don't know how much they swim. I don't give a damn how much they swim. They could be new for all I care. These are seasoned swimmers.
Mind, yeah.
And you're passing them right now. You're doing a wonderful job right now. You don't need a break. Your endurance is wonderful right now. You're having a good time. The water's beautiful. Oh, there's a person right there. You just go around. See, good job. You're passing people, but you started in a perfect spot. Once it was like a big rectangular swim, and it was like half a mile, and then like, I don't know, 200 on like the sides. And so I get halfway down. I get like a little over a quarter mile in. I'm like, Donald, you're already halfway through the first straightaway. You're going to finish this race. By the time I made the next turn to get onto the last half a mile, I was literally laughing in the water. I almost swallowed water because I was laughing. I was like, you're doing such a great job. And then that video where I was like, the whole Geno Smith quote where I was like, they tried to write me off, but I ain't right back there. Like I thought about that right when I was coming on the last half a mile. And like I literally was laughing at myself because I'm like, I'm going to say that when I get up there because I'm going to finish the swim. And when I get up the ramp, I'm going to say this out loud. And it's going to be hilarious and I was just laughing at myself doing it. And I literally talked to myself for like I think I did it in like 55 minutes. I talked to myself for damn near an hour straight in the water. Like in my head, it wasn't really vocal, although there were certain parts that were vocal like when I was laughing, because like I needed to talk myself to stay calm through that swim because I was like, I refuse to DNF. I really refuse to die, but I'm not going to DNF. Like I will finish this.
I thought you were gonna say I'd rather die than DNF.
I will not. No. I want my life. I will not rather die.
Oh man, that's actually funny, and I do I appreciate like that positive, like reinforced positivity, right? Like once you're getting that bit of feedback and it's positive, like, look, the sun's not in my eyes. That's positive. Oh, it's a beautiful day. That's positive. Oh, also I'm this far into the event and now I'm passing people, and you're just like just building momentum with
Mm.
each one of
I didn't
those
take a single rest break
things.
on that swim.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just guided me right through.
Yeah. Um that's something to explore, because there's uh the the research with the self-talk is that, positive self-talk is obviously better than negative self-talk, right? In the example that you just shared. They've also found that it can be more effective or it's usually more instructional. So, like, in the example that you shared, and this is kind of like a apples to oranges comparison, but the what did you say? Pull, roll,
So there were
pull,
instructional cues I was
roll.
giving myself, like insert the hand, pull the water through your hip,
Uh
bring
huh.
the hand, glide across. Like I was having some of those. Like I did not use those type of instructional cues. The major instructional cue was to stay calm. And so all of that conversation was to keep my nerves down.
Yeah,
Because once my
yeah.
nerves go up, the fatigue starts to build, the anxiety of
The
being in the open
anxiety.
water
Yeah,
builds, and so
yeah.
the instructional cue was like those were the ways that I was trying to keep the calmness down. And then like
Once you
outside of that, I
got
was
once you got
focusing
there,
on like,
yeah,
the arm thing, like, all right,
yeah,
you got to insert and pull. I did have those sorts of things, but that wasn't really what carried me. Like I had to stay calm so I could even think about those things.
yeah. Um, that's good clarity there. Um, the other piece with the cueing,
All the running cues
as
that I
it
use are
relates to
usually all
self
related
talk,
to that.
yeah, yeah. And you're also good about, like, you just said rolling over the ground,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, that's an external, right, versus internal, where it's like pick up your knees, get your foot down on the ground faster. Like,
Mm.
they're finding that, um, just like we were talking about imagery and visualization, I guess this kind of has a component to it. But they're finding that with the self talk, that the external cueing is a little bit more effective than an internal cue.
Yeah.
So, like, and this is something that, like, you're really good at, even in the gym
I was gonna
too,
say that's
like
how
with the
we try to
kids.
actually cue
Right,
people in the gym.
right. So that's, and then they take that, right, and then that's their self talk when
Mm-hmm.
when they're doing this stuff on their own. Um, so that was four of the big components of MST, or mental skills training. Some key takeaways for the listener here. Mental skills training is skills training. You
Mm.
have to practice it. You cannot just turn it on. Train your brain like you train your body. Um, Attention is one of the most important resources that you have as an athlete, especially during hard, efforts and races or competition. So make a conscious decision on where that attention is going. Don't let that be dictated for you, because where your attention goes, energy is going to flow. Bandwidth is then dedicated there. So, I guess this is just a fancy way of saying, like, stay focused, keep your eye on the ball. um, we talked about visualization being a mental rehearsal. So again, um, Broadway performances don't just get performed, right? So rehearse. Use every opportunity you can to rehearse, and rehearse in as much detail as possible. And effective self-talk is going to direct your actions. So that's why that kind of category came last, because that can be a good way to make sure all of those other things are falling in
Mm.
line. Like, choose your mantra, right? If you choose your mantra, okay, this is pull, roll, pull, roll. Okay, so then the attention is going to the pull, roll, pull, roll. So there's like a cascading effect, with all of these. So that's episode 1 of what is right now a 3-part series on brain training and sports psychology. So thanks for nerding out with us on this stuff.
Yeah, I hope you got to like really think about even in your own training, like what do you
What
do
do you
to do
do?
this?
Exactly.
What could
Yeah.
you be doing better? You know, I'm sure like throughout the conversation, you might have thought about instances where you had really good visualization, attention control, self-talk, and such, and in times where you kind of struggle to do that. You know, sometimes it's easy to like, bro, you're like being a piece of crap, and you know, you kind of get down on yourself, and sometimes that can be helpful, but only in small bursts, and that's only for certain types of people. Like, you know, you get going down that negative spiral too much, like you're like, oh my god, I just sabotaged the whole thing, and like,
Mhm.
you know, and like, what are the instances when you've actually done those things really well, and like, how do you do more of that?
Yeah,
And you identify it.
I'm sure everyone throughout the episode has been thinking back to specific circumstances where they might have like done it really well or could have done a lot better. Um, you want to pitch the webinar before we sign off?
Cool. Yeah, please check out the Strength Training for Runners webinar. It's our full webinar on how to do strength training as a running athlete, from how to put together the workouts, days per week, sets, reps. There's instructional videos on a lot of the basics, being able to squat well, hinge well, do these exercises on one leg, lunges, SLDLs, how to use your upper body to be able to press and pull, and being able to use your core to be able to rotate and brace. How do you structure this into a training plan that works well for runners? And one of the awesome things about it, plyometric work. And so being able to learn about how plyometrics are organized, as well as being able to incorporate that in your own training. Um, Summer Trackside has started, but we're pretty full. So we're kind of not really taking many registrations for that anymore. But we do have fall race training coming up.
Yep.
For any of you looking to do races here this fall and looking to start training in August, you know, we have spots that will be available for that in late July, August.
Yeah, we do. So by about the time that this podcast airs, we'll be finalizing the roster for the race training because it's time. I was talking to who was it? It might have been Lindsay in the gym just this morning. But like, man, that off season went by real fast.
Yeah.
You know, we're starting. Just last week. She'll on Thursday morning she'll jog over to the track, do the workout at the track, and then jog home because in season she needs the extra mileage, right? So I'll meet up with her at a certain point, like at my bus stop in Oakland to do it, and we're like, man, I can't believe we're starting this again. But yeah, it's that time. If you're preparing for a fall distance event, reach out, check out the website, check out our Instagram profiles to kind of get an idea for what we're all about. Send us over some contact info and we'll get the conversation going. Next episode on this little sports psychology tangent is going to be emotional regulation. There's going to be a little bit of overlap to what we discussed today. So we'll do a brief recap and then dive into how regulating your emotions can help aid your athletic performance.
Oh my gosh, that is. I'm increasingly realizing that's basically like my whole job, especially with younger athletes. But it really doesn't even matter what age. Anyways, all right. So there's a lot.
Stay
There's a
tuned.
lot to talk about there. Y'all have a good one. We'll see you on the next episode.
See ya.